So, the Dawning weapons are not really worth it, they said, and honestly, they might be right. But I did want to run a solo GM only using Dawning weapons. So here we are. I used the Stay Frosty with Desperado, the Glacioclasm with Envious and Control Burst, and the Zephyr with Attrition orbs and Cold Steel. It's a pretty good roll for a fusion and a sword, and that's probably what I'd recommend for anyone using these in PvE. The Zephyr especially is fantastic, as you will see in this run. And for the build itself, I haven't really tried out Arc Hunter at all since the super changes, so I figured now is probably a pretty good time to do so. And it's still a good option, but without being like overly oppressive. Obviously, if I went something like Consecration Titan with Dawning weapons, it wouldn't really be with Dawning weapons, they would just kind of be there, like you don't even need weapons. But also Arc Hunter has Ascension, something I've really wanted to use with this. Because Ascension with a sword like the Zephyr has some really weird interactions. So basically, if you have any sword equipped while you use Ascension, it will take any effects from that sword. So this Zephyr has Cold Steel, so that means if I use Ascension, not only will it jolt enemies, give me amplified other usual stuff, it will also slow enemies. And obviously it has Attrition orbs as well. So as you can see here, like look at the orbs bamber. Because I used Ascension, which has Attrition orbs kind of, because it's taken it from the sword, that will just spam orbs every time you use it. This works with any sword, by the way. You could use it with Ergo Sum with some weird effects. You could use it with like a chain reaction sword if you wanted, just make everything just combust. It's really weird, but actually really helpful in this run. And you can see here, Glacioclasm, actually also not terrible. My aim's bad, but the gun itself is, actually reasonable for mages. And I think it's really because of like its high impact frame, while a bit sluggish, because this has controlled burst, that reduces the percentage of that charge time. Higher total charge time means you're getting that more bonus for that perk. So really good pairing, good for mages and like champions, like just bursting them down. Pretty much nothing else realistically, but it's definitely serviceable. And this room here, I don't recommend anyone does it like this is stupid, but it was pretty fun. Basically I'm just blocking with a sword, waiting for my Ascension to come off cooldown, popping it, and then, blocking again. This means I can stay on the point for pretty much the entire time, but again, this is not safe. Like, the only way I think I survived this was a Gifted Conviction, which improves Ascension even more so. So, it gives a few extra projectiles you can see these kind of like track out and damage stuff, which is pretty good. But also, whenever you jolt something, you get more damage resist. And everything you hit with Ascension will jolt. So like if you get a single jolt, I think it's a 25% damage resist. If you get two jolts, it'll be a 40%, I think. And if you get three or more jolts, which you'd probably normally are with Ascension, it's a 50% damage resist. And this lasts for 10 seconds as well. So in that time, you can probably get your Ascension back and just keep on looping. So pretty much at all times, I'll have a 50% damage resist, which is honestly really nice. Especially with this modifier where don't super off the edge like that. That was really bad. Yeah. But yeah, with this modifier where I have increased health but it doesn't regen, having a damage resist on top of that is so valuable. Like it does mean that I can play like, quite aggressive. Like it doesn't even look like a GM at times really. But it's because the damage resistance is stacking, and I've got a few sources of healing, like the Attrition orbs from the Zephyr and the Ascension. I've put on boot mods so that if I pick up any orbs, it'll regen a small amount of health, which is honestly completely essential for this. If I didn't have those mods on, there's just no chance. Like, it's not happening. I'll be getting no health regen. Because Arc is, good offensive stuff. But, like, health regen options, you just don't really have anything. I was using those and a few artifact mods which just help out a little bit. Like, because nothing's really happening at this moment, I'll bring up a list of some of the more important artifact mods. So, obviously, Unstoppable Pulse Rifle. Total Carnage, which gives damage resistance on finishers. This will stack on top of other damage resist options. I use Debilitating Wave, which will make finishers also do an RKOE damage, which blinds. And if targets are blinded, that's a kind of damage resist option because it's not going to be shooting you. I use Curative Orbs, which makes an additional orb of power when breaking shields, again, with the boot mods. Really good, probably essential. And also this mod has a second effect where collecting orbs or elemental pickups like Ionic Tracers will also give an additional bit of health. This is essentially a second copy of that boot mod. I use Thick of it so that I get armor charges when killing stuff when surrounded, which is pretty much everything here. And the last few column options, I use Conductive Cosmic Crystal, which gives Arc extra damage to stasis debuff targets. So obviously with Ascension, it will slow everything, then my Arc Staff will deal bonus damage to their slow targets. And I use Brain Freeze, so that if anything's frozen, it will also freeze things nearby to it. Which also means that all of those will take extra damage from Arc sources. It's just a nice little pairing. Like, I think this is probably the best artifact options I could go with. There's not really a whole lot. There is arc stuff in the artifact, but a lot of it is to do with arc weapons. Which, was there any arc dawning weapons? There was a glaive, I suppose, but realistically, I'm probably not going to be using a glaive in a GM. It's fine. But if I was using the glaive, I won't also use the sword. I could go for like the machine gun or the linear fusion rifle. Machine gun's really good as well. Linear, I'm not really sure. It might be something, but I've only like kind of briefly looked through the perks on these weapons, and yeah, they're fine. There's nothing like, if you miss this event, don't feel bad about it. Basically, the Zephyr's fine. Like, it's pretty good, but if you got like the Slammer, I think that can have exactly the same role and arguably just a better archetype, and it can have Eager Edge if you want that instead. So pretty much for all of these things, it probably is better options. But the origin trait is maybe the reason. So this is on all the dawning weapons. I think some other options, but don't pick those. Always pick this one because it's really good. So it's every 6 kills you get on red bars, or any 2 kills on like elites, champions, or like a mix of whatever, will spawn out this little purple present thing on the floor. If you pick that up, it will give you 10% to all your ability energies. It will restore a little bit of health, and it will start health regen. Which is a lot for an origin trait. Like, it's basically like Wellspring and healing orbs, and you get health regen. Like, it's kind of silly. And only 6 kills. Like, if you're in something like here where there's a lot of enemies, you're getting quite a few of these. And that's on all dawning weapons, by the way. So that is a reason, I suppose. But again, it's whatever. If you can make it work, then go for it. But if not, whatever. You can see here, Arc Staff is just fantastic now. Not only does it come back really fast, but you can just see those champions just really good. This is any roaming super now, just like an extra 50% to champions or whatever it was. It's insane. And then here, capturing these plates, I think I do more of a stupid plate tech where I'm just going to sit here and just Ascension spam. Obviously clear off these original like wave of enemies, no problem. Probably the first time I've actually used the pulse rifle this entire run, but realistically, yeah, there's actually nothing really good on this day, Frosty. It was here because it was the only dawning weapon available in that weapon slot. Like, I'll be completely real, it's mediocre at best. Probably good in PvP. I think Lightweight's got a buff as well, so you can probably get some really good PvP rolls on this thing. But PvE, nah. Like, pulse rifles are decent in PvE now, but just not this one. Like, the perk pool doesn't support it. I like Desperado, like, it's actually a pretty decent damage boost. But if you look at the column 3, there is, like, actually nothing. I think mine had moving target, which is completely pointless. But all the other options are also completely pointless. I think there's Enlightened Action. Like, if you have Enlightened Action, Desperado, that is the PvE god roll. And, like, nah. You're not really going to be using that. Yeah, here we go. Here's, like, some more capturing the plate in the most clown method known to mankind. I mean, look, it's stupid, but it works. So, is it really stupid? Yeah, but also when you're in the super, as notice this here, you can just keep spamming Ascension. You could probably like just stay in the air and just keep popping it. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that at some point. I'll just pop super and just stand in one spot and just press Ascension over and over and over. It might actually, like, it's not good damage, but like for something like this where you got to capture something, maybe it's useful. As you can see so far, it's actually been a pretty easy run. At the time's not great. We're here at what, 10 minutes? I'm sure you can see a lot faster than this, but for something a bit out there, like, come on. When was the last time you saw someone use Ascension with the Zephyr? Like, it's weird. It's pretty fun, in all honesty. That's the main thing. Like, it's just a kind of silly loadout, which is still effective. It's not like silly and bad, it's silly and can work. You do have to play a bit differently, but you know, it can definitely compete. If you're like running this in a group, like just doing a GM farm or whatever, because this week's a pretty easy one to farm, you could run this build and you'll be completely fine. You could just steamroll through the entire thing. So now we're just going through these sections here where enemy density is quite low. I can kind of just go over a few extra things of this build I've not really covered so far. So I've said about flow state as my first aspect, and obviously Ascension is my second. Flow state, on top of giving cast ability regen, does also max out your weapons like reload and handling, which is actually quite nice. I'm using Disorientating Blow instead of the combo blow thing because I'm not going to be using combo blow at all. Disorientating Blow does blind on hit, so essentially my melee attack will just instantly stun unstoppable champions as well, which is probably a nice backup, not really essential. But again, I'm not using combo blow, so this is pretty much the only other option, and it's serviceable. I use pulse grenades because they're just the best arc grenade. I always use these. For my fragments, I use Spark of Ions. This will make ionic traces on enemies defeated while they're jolted, which again, because of the Ascension spam, is pretty much all of them. I think there's probably a small cooldown on this one, but you still get plenty of ionic traces, which are always helpful to have because you'll get a bit of health back off these because of the artifact mod and its stability energy. Nice enough. Use Spark of Resistance because it's just 25% DR when surrounded. Like, it'd be crazy not to use this one. Use Spark of Shock to make my arc grenades jolt, which is pretty nice again. And Amplification, which will give orbs on multi-kills when amplified. But the fragments I used here are probably quite replaceable, realistically. I just use these because they're quite generic and work with a weapon build. If you are using something different like an arc special weapon, definitely use something like Spark of Beacons instead, which will blind any enemy defeated by an arc special or heavy weapon. Now coming up to this section here, this is probably the part which gave me the most trouble. I did run through this twice. With the first time I ran through this section, it was pretty shambles. I got through it, but the problem was I kind of ran out of juice way too soon. So here you can see, like, I'm just trying to kind of milk it for as much as I can before I pop the super. And with the super, hopefully get rid of 1 to 2 champions. The problem before was both champions was alive after the super, and it was just kind of hard to get rid of them. Like here, they are, but one's finishable, so we're already in a decent spot. All the kind of trash ads are already dead, which is huge. And then, probably playing a bit aggressive here, you could realistically take a step back and stun the champion from afar with the pulse rifle, then just kill it with a fusion, and that would be a lot safer. But I was pretty much at full health, and aside from being dragged around by that weird totem thing, I feel comfortable enough doing this. And these big major enemies here, this is where Glacioclasm is actually really good. Again, it's kind of, I haven't used fusion rifles in so long. And like, this made me kind of think, like, you know what, actually, these are kind of okay. Like, could you do that with a shotgun? Probably, but they kind of work in a nice range. It has a pretty decent ammo economy to it as well. Like, I was using special ammo finisher in this run, so the special ammo economy was never really in doubt. But it's not bad, like, the amount of damage it does per shot is pretty good. But what you can see is the heavy ammo economy is absolutely in shambles. But here, I must keep this 1 ammo. Like, this is really important. As long as I have 1 ammo, I'm fine. If I have no ammo, I am just screwed. Essentially, I can still use the Ascension as much as possible and get all the effects from the sword without using a single piece of ammo. I can also block as long as I have 1 ammo, and that block is just infinite. I will never lose ammo doing this. So as long as I just have that and just kind of be wary of what's going on, I'll be fine. But this boss room is probably the difficult part of the strike. When there's enemies spawning in, it's kind of okay. Because you can see here, they spawn in little groups, Ascension pretty much kills them all. You're going to get a few orbs at that, which you can pick up those orbs, heal yourself, which is great. And this boss also has a lot of health. So you kind of need a bit of sustain because you're going to take damage here and there. So when these ads are spawning in, completely fine. The problem is though, the ads don't actually spawn forever. There'll be a few waves, you can, obviously with these ones you can just kill them off pretty fast. Damage the boss in between waves, and you know, that's fine. You can just keep this up pretty much. I was getting quite low here, like you can see. If these enemies wasn't spawning, I'd be in a really bad spot because I'd have no way to heal at all. But because the enemies being here, you can get the orb, heal a little bit, It probably wasn't that much, to be honest, but it kept me out of a red, which is fine. And this boss here just taking shots at it with the fusion from safety because I'm a bit wary about the health. But here's a better one. I've got more orbs this time. If I collect up these orbs, I'm back to full. That's what you need in this room. You need to be on top of the ads all the time. As soon as you hear them spawning in, I have a little bit of a sound cue. Just jump on them, kill them before they start spreading apart everywhere. Like if you just ignore the spawn and just let them go everywhere, that's when it can be a bit just horrible. Like you'd be shot from all angles, you can't group kill them so you're not making any orbs or anything like that. So yeah, keep on top of the ads. I don't really have DPS like Arc Staff's okay, but I don't really have DPS options here, so I'm kind of just damaging the boss honestly a bit slowly. I'm taking it safe, trying to get the fusion shots in where I can. Very cautious about not really being hit by the boss when I'm damaging it, because again, this health isn't going to come back. I think at this point the ad waves have probably stopped. So this health here is what I have until the next room. And I walk in and get meleeed like just a complete idiot. But you see, that's what I mean. Like you can't do that more than once or twice. So now you're in these in-between rooms. Again, this is fine again. I've already done this earlier in the strike. I know what to do here. Shouldn't play aggressive with this health. Maybe I should like go back a bit and just plink off the throws. What are they called, throws? No, the screebs? Yeah, the screebs. I should really like kill the screebs from the back of a room and then push up on these. Maybe actually use my pulse rifle for once. Like that'd be the smart thing to do, but I just kind of feel like playing aggressive at all times for some unknown reason and almost die on a simple jump as well. But yeah, there we go. But I don't know, these rooms, like these in-between rooms are completely easy. Like there's no real danger in these. Just be careful of the like screebs. And this heavy brick, here we go. This was a lifesaver. I can now actually use the sword. I've been kind of sat here for the last 2 to 3 minutes when I was in the boss room. I was thinking like, it'd be really nice to have the sword right now. And here we go, I've got 20. It's not a lot of ammo, but you know, it's something. I can actually use it now. It's not just kind of just sat there doing nothing. With this champ as well, I want to get a finisher on this guy so I can go back into the boss room on pretty much full health. Yeah, there we go, look. Have your health regen. You do get a bit of health regen back. Like, that wasn't all from the finisher and the orbs. If you defeat a champion or things like any kind of major, like because of a modifier, you will get some health back as well. That's just a nice chunk there. When you start this room here, there's going to be a lot of stuff spawning at once. You can kind of see on the floor, there'll be like the spawn point. One of the spawn points will have like 1 or 2 enemies, and the other one you'll see like, a lot of little dots circled. That's where the big chunk of enemies are going to spawn. So just focus that one. There's like always a champion in like a group of enemies, and kill that, and yeah, you're pretty good. I used the arc staff there because it was just a lot of enemies stacked up, and then I get a bit of boss damage with the rest of that staff usage. But this phase here, this is easily the worst part of the boss fight, at least for this build. Because the weapons I'm using again aren't high DPS options. And the ads wave what's spawning this time have these like stupid wrath things in them. These can also be Bane enemies, which if you get something like a Drain Bane or like a heal one, which is one of the more annoying options, it can really set you back. And these enemy waves will just keep spawning in like what, maybe 20 seconds or something like that. And then no matter what you're doing, you can see here, this has a heal one in it. This is really important I get this heal enemy as soon as possible. I do want to use Arc Staff to damage a boss because my weapons aren't good damage. But I popped it there to get rid of that heal Bane, because if not, this could just be an absolute shambles. You see here, like, this is sketchy. These wrath things are alive. Just finish last one off there. But as soon as I finish it off, there's another set which has the wraths in it as well. Thankfully, there's no Bane ones in this set, so that's probably quite lucky. But like, my health hasn't really recovered a whole lot here. These enemy waves are what I'm using to recover health. I got a little bit back there, but you have to be so careful. And then again, I'm not really getting time here to damage a boss. Because these things are spawning in, it takes me like 10 out of 20 seconds just to kill the enemies. Maybe I get 1 or 2 shots in on the boss, and then the next set of enemies are here. So this part was kind of tough, and not gonna lie, it probably might take a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna speed up this footage until the next section. The waves do stop eventually though. Like, you can literally just not damage a boss at all in this point, and just kind of keep fighting the waves, and eventually they will stop and then you can damage the boss. But again, because there's only the boss, there's no way to heal. If you're on Warlock and you have Healing Rift, great. Or like you got an Attrition orbs weapon which isn't a sword, you've got like a multi-mac, and you can just spam it into a boss and make a bunch of orbs. That works as well. You can pick up those orbs and heal yourself that way. But with this, there's nothing really. I had to peek shoot the boss on half health, knowing that if I take any shots, it will not be good. I mean, that's a good thing about Glacioclasm, you can kind of like pre-charge it around cover, so that does work, and the special ammo was pretty plentiful. It works, but it's not the best way to do it. Yeah, so now we're coming up onto the last phase, just taking out this champion, and he's in between sections, nothing to it. And this last phase, thankfully, is nowhere near as bad as the in-between one. You'll get an overload champion here instead of an unstop, which is honestly easier to deal with, they're less chunky. And the enemy waves can be annoying because they have raiders, which will just like sometimes insta-teleport and like split up. But they're not tanky. It means you can actually just get rid of them pretty fast, or if they are spread apart, you can even just honestly just kind of ignore them and just try and get some more damage in on the boss. Like, last time I really couldn't afford to, but with these waves of enemies, it doesn't really feel that threatening, to be honest. Obviously we have snipers and can deal high damage, but compared to those rough things with just an obnoxious amount of health, it's much better. You see here, I do still have to kind of respect that the enemies are alive and take them out as much as I can. But it's not that bad here because I'm building up supercharge anyway. Like you see there, like that Ascension took out the wave just pretty much instantly. Which does give me a bit of time to get some damage on the boss. So we're coming up towards the end of the strike now, and I'll just go through what I think about these weapons. I do like the Zephyr. That's the first thing. I really like the Zephyr. Would I use it outside of a build like this where I'm just kind of using a bit of a cheese strategy, to be honest, like get more out of a weapon than intended? I probably would. And there's also different ways you can go with this. Like the Zephyr's loot pool has some also interesting options. If you do want to use like this Ascension build, there is other ways you can go. The Cold Steel is nice here because like slowing these GM tier enemies is quite useful. But if you're using just like online content, there's a really good combination. You want to go with Strategist in column 3 because that will also work with the Ascension, where every kill you get will give 10% class ability energy back. So if you use Ascension and kill a bunch of enemies with it, you have your Ascension straight away. It just completely bypasses the cooldown, which is crazy. And in column 4 you can have Chain Reaction, which will also work with the Ascension. So not only are you dealing heavy damage to him, you're getting your Ascension back pretty much easily. Like, just a few enemies defeated will get you halfway there. But you're also then making a chain reaction effect on any enemy defeated, which will really extend its radius. If you want a fun build, that's the way to go. The other Dawning weapons though, the Glacioclasm's okay, but other fusion rifles can do the exact same thing this does. I know there's some really good PvP options for this thing, which might be the case with quite a lot of these weapons. Like the Pulse Rifle, stay Frosty, that's definitely a PvP option. Don't use this in PvE, there's really no point. The Linear Fusion Rifle also seems like it's kind of okay, but there's a Scintillation this week, like you can farm it right now. And the Scintillation is basically the same thing, but maybe a little better. You can have some funny surrounded rolls on the Scintillation, which you can't get on the Dawning one. But the Dawning one does have serviceable perks, like you can have Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch, which is just like your standard boss DPS option. But it's a Linear Fusion Rifle, so whatever. For glaives like Judgment of Kelgrath, it's the aggressive one. Pretty good actually, I'd recommend this. It has close to melee, that's probably the only thing that really matters on glaives. And the machine gun, I think it has low ammo reserves, which hurts it a bit. But it does have incandescent, you can enhance it, that's pretty nice. It's a good archetype for 450. That auto-loading incandescent would be pretty good, really. So, that's it, we're out of time. That's the GM done. Quite easy with Dawning weapons, actually. Thank you for watching.